it. We have one so far. We have at least one more that will be 25 soon, but we can go ahead and start. It's time.
Okay.
Because we've got time.
All right, welcome. Thank you for everybody attending. It's 6:03. That clock in front of us is 3 minutes past, so we're not that late.
It's actually an hour.
It's almost ready. Are we ready? So again, welcome to everybody. For those of you that are here in person for the first time, thank you. I guess we should introduce, I know we've gone through some introductions, but how about the people that have been here for the first time? Introduce yourself. Great.
You wanna start with me?
Yep.
I'm Ron Matthews. Glad to finally get on the schedule committee tonight finally. Student of the school district, parent of 4 kids in the school district, or 2 graduating in college and 2 more on the way. So glad to be involved in part of this process. And I've been fishing for a long time.
I'm Catherine Sayers. I've worked for the city of King Coral for 29 years, retired a year or so, 2 years ago. And I actually have a bachelor's degree in health education, so.
Yay!
This is like, I'm so excited. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I really am. I know health education doesn't excite everybody, but I love it, so.
You're my new favorite person.
Oh, thanks,
Besides where, of course.
So I'm Mary Fisher, and I'm the District 1 representative to the school board, and I'm happy to be here at CSI again, and I probably love health education as much as Lisa, and at least as much as Karen. And so, I'm glad to see all of you, and I think that we're gonna be happy with tonight's presentation.
Cindy McClung, I'm the district liaison, and I'm the director for continuous improvement, 33 years with the district, and happy to be here tonight.
Melissa Hatter, I'm parent of one student in 10th grade, 9th grade doing Florida virtual, and then a 12th grader at Cypress High School.
Bill Ribble, Nestor, this is my 5th year at CSI.
Brian Rasnick. I think this is my 6th. I was on.
You're all before me.
That's why you made me chair. Made the motion. I have 2 kids, Benita Springs High. One, I just ordered the cap and gown yesterday, so that'll be interesting. And he's gonna sign his letter of intent tomorrow for our baseball, so that's gonna be another exciting thing. You know,
Intent for where?
what was that?
For where?
So he's going to South Florida State College in Avon Park. He wanted a JUCO, because he was offered 4 D1 scholarships, and chose these kids these days. As a freshman, he was told you're gonna get a good scholarship at a D1 school, but you're gonna be chasing foul balls for the first 2 years of your career. So he said, you know what, I'm gonna go JUCO, I'm gonna play, I'm gonna start as a freshman and sophomore, and then I'll transfer to one of those D1 schools that offered me a scholarship. So that's his plan,
Mark it.
and he's sticking to it. And he thinks he's gonna be a professional baseball player, but I keep telling him he's 5'7", and good luck, but we'll see.
Shortstop.
Split with.
Correct.
I'm Michelle Stork. I'm an associate professor in the College of Education at FGCU. My daughter is a graduate of Fort Myers High School, and she is a teacher in the district. And many of my students are county administrators and teachers. My name is Rainey Hall. I have a sophomore at Fort Myers High. My daughter graduated from Fort Myers High. She's in college. I graduated from Fort Myers High, and my father graduated from Fort Myers High. So we are true natives.
Apparently a real green.
Yeah, we are green. I work in imaging consulting. I'm a liaison with doctors and physicians, so I'm kind of in the healthcare field, kind of on the business side of things, and I'm happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Brent Ibata. I have a PhD in public health, a master's in public health, and a law degree with a concentration in health law. I actually wrote the book on public health law and the built environment in American public schools, so this is going to be interesting. I like discussing. My job is that I've got 2 kids at Fort Myers High School, and my wife is a special ed teacher assistant for the district, and I work for Lee Health. I'm their accreditation guy. I'm the guy that keeps them in line with CMS and OPEB.
All right, thank you. I promise that's the first time or the last time we'll be introducing ourselves, because this is, I think, the third time for a lot of us. So that'll be the last time. Did everybody receive the agenda? Obviously, you probably did since you're here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. The approval of the October meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance, first of all, receive them and then have a chance to review them?
Pretty well done.
Okay, yeah, they were perfect in my eyes. Do I have a motion to approve? Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So they're approved. We're gonna change the order a little bit tonight. Ms. Fisher is gonna go first, because she said her presentation was short.
Very short.
Really short. This meeting, by the way, is gonna be a lot easier than your last board meeting, because I watched that. It's much more comfortable here. I'm guessing. So it's yours.
It won't go as long either.
No, it won't. Thank you. I didn't want to take time to give a report. We had talked about legislative priorities, a couple of meetings ago, I guess in September. And, last month, we had the people from CTE here, from, tech colleges. I know they did a great job. It's an awesome program and really affords a lot of opportunities for kids who are not necessarily college bound, but do want to get into the workforce. Tonight, by request, we're going to talk about health, mental health, and comprehensive health. And in 2017, after many years of working with Leisha and a lot of other people, we finally got a comprehensive health education policy. It's been a long haul in trying to get health back into the schools. It's really much needed. It was sorely missed, and I think that the results of not having it show themselves now today with the current situation. And there's been a big emphasis now on mental health. I'm a former school counselor, so I have a lot of experience in working with kids with those types of issues. And I just want to turn it over to our team tonight, so Sherry Wenzel, and tell your title.
Oh, I'm Sherry Winslow. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am the coordinator for mental health services at the district office. Before I got this position, I was a school social worker for 18 years, and I worked for DCF.
And I'm gonna hold you for last, Tricia. And Lori Brooks.
Good evening, thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Lori Brooks, and I'm the Director of School Counseling and Mental Health Services for the school district. And this is my 30th year with the district as a teacher and then a counselor and an administrator now. And it really is a privilege to partner with our parents, our kids, and our teachers on really laying foundational services, but access to services so that we can partner with parents to help children.
Thank you. And last but not least, Leisha Roy.
Yes, I'm Leisha Roy. I'm a teacher on assignment for health education in the district. This is year 29. I spent 26 years teaching middle school health at Gulf Middle School, and I think I'll write a book when I retire.
Called thumbs up.
Right on. Anything else you want me to say? I'm the SHAC chair. I'm School Health Advisory Committee, for those of you that don't know what SHAC stands for.
Right, right. So thank you. So I'll turn it back over to Lori. Right.
Wonderful. Well, actually, we're going to start with really our comprehensive health plan and an overview of what that looks like. And then we'll transition into the continuum of school-based mental health services. So Leisha Roy is going to wow you with.
Wow. Where do you want me to send it?
If you can kind of actually stand close to here, because they're going to sit back,
Okay.
and that way they can feel better.
Okay, and before I start, is there anyone that would like me to wear this mask? I will be happy to put it on if anybody is uncomfortable with me not wearing this.
I should just say yes so you can be uncomfortable. No, it's fine.
Okay. Put me in the right spot, Cindy.
Just close to me where they can hear because the microphone is
Oh,
in my.
close to you, where, okay, so I brought notes, Lori is my timekeeper because I asked about the mask because a lot of air is gonna come out of this mouth. Because anytime I have a chance to talk about comprehensive health education, I try to get as much information in as I can without just driving people absolutely terribly insane. So again, I'm a teacher on assignment here at the district, I've been here, this is my 3rd year. And everybody should have received a copy of our comprehensive health education policy 3.071 and a pen and some flashcards and, all right, my students are ready. Okay, here we go. Cindy, go ahead. You're trying, technical difficulties.
It's, well, it's just,
Well,
when we're doing Zoom and live, there we go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't-
Okay, so just to give you an idea of what I'm gonna try to go over, and again, I'm gonna do this at light speed, I'm not gonna read slides to you. I do wanna give you an idea of the history of health education here, not only in our district, but in the state of Florida. We're gonna talk about all of the components that a certified health teacher needs to be competent in, which is, it's a very encompassing list. We'll talk about the areas of instructional focus for our 3 different levels, elementary, middle, and high. We'll talk about recent teacher training, and then of course I will ramble on and on about the importance of comprehensive health education. So while I'm going through this presentation, I would like for you guys to kind of be thinking along the lines of, we know all the research shows that healthy students are better learners. So what I'm looking for from you are any suggestions on how we can adequately provide that comprehensive health education all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay, here we go, history. 1973, I was 3 years old when the state of Florida decided that they were going to introduce the Comprehensive Health Education Act of 1973. 5 years later, in 1978, they decided they were going to amend it. Not only were they going to make it the general categorical program, which had to do with funding, but also to serve as a model for other districts throughout the state. That was the goal back in 1978. For at least the last 4 decades, comprehensive health education has been part of required instruction in the state of Florida. You can see the list there of all the different topics that have been included throughout that time. They also added, it's been about 10 years, don't quote me on that, I should have looked that up. They added teen dating, violence, and abuse that would be taught from 7th through 12th grade. And then they also talked about, I will look at, I can't see my slide there.
That's fine.
It's basically that the importance of abstinence being the expected route for students, and also to talk about teen pregnancy prevention. Okay, because that's what comprehensive health is. For those of you that don't know, there are 3 different types of health education in the state of Florida. There is abstinence only. Abstinence only means that's it. There is no discussion, nothing else exists but abstinence. There's abstinence plus, which gives a little bit more information, and then there's comprehensive health that says, yes, abstinence is what is expected. It is certainly what kids should do at their age, but we also talk about contraception, and we talk about ways to prevent teen pregnancy. So in addition to all the other stuff that was just up there are 3 other statutes that deal specifically with certain topics. The first one dealing with drugs and substances, the next one dealing with HIV and AIDS, and then the last policy has to do with school wellness and physical education. That also includes our food and nutrition services, and we'll get into more about that a little bit later. 2019, the State Board of Education decided that they would create some rules, and I want to read you the quote from the state. These rules came about because, quote unquote, these concepts are included as part of required instruction through Florida statutes, but did not include an assurance mechanism to support and verify that the instruction was being delivered. Wait, it's in statute, but but we're not assured that it's delivered. When I started teaching health education back in 1993, middle school health was a requirement. Our school had 2 full-time health teachers. All high school students were required to take at least a semester of life management skills, and they also took a semester of PE, but 2 different separate classes. So we have the mental and emotional health rule that went into effect in July of 2019, covers grades 6 through 12 only. We had the substance use and abuse that went into August of 2019, which is K through 12. And then we had the child trafficking prevention, also K-12, in September of 2019. They just kept rolling out that year. We had a busy year, didn't we, Lori? This year, effective July the 1st of this year, we have added first aid and CPR training. The rule or the bill states that 6th and 8th graders are encouraged to be taught at least 1 hour of CPR and first aid, which does include hands-on. All 9th and 11th graders are required to receive 1 hour of CPR and first aid training hands-on. Good news, it's all hands only. There's no mouth to mouth. So, because I know that would be a big concern for parents. We're still working on how we're going to meet that. We'll talk a little bit later about the percentage of high school students that actually take HOPE, which is the high school version of a combined health and PE class. And I can assure you, we're not going to cover all 9th and 11th graders in HOPE. The only class that all 11th graders have, I believe, is English.
Correct.
Okay.
And most have US history, but we have some anomalies.
Yep. Okay. Next. Okay, so these are, I just put this up here just to give you an idea of all the different aspects that, according to statute and according to any comprehensive health education program, they're going to include all of these things. We're not just talking mental health. We're not just talking substance use. We're not just, we're talking personal safety, decision making, goal setting. All of these things are included and should be part of a comprehensive health education program. So let's talk about elementary. So our comprehensive health education policy really doesn't, it addresses elementary as in incorporating, for those of you that have had elementary students in the past or currently, I don't think I've heard any currently, but elementary students have specials. They go to art or they go to PE, that's their specials. There is not a health special that focuses primarily on health. Now, a lot of the elementary schools, their physical education teachers will include health education topics, but there is not anything specific to health education by itself. Well, no, hang on to that. I'll see if they don't, we can watch some of it or we don't have to. Go back. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so we talked about those State Board of Education rules. Mental and emotional health is for grades 6 through 12, but at the elementary level, we cover that through the use of a program called Safer Smarter Kids. It's through Lawrence Kids. It is actually been used in the district even before we had these State Board of Ed rules. For the substance use and abuse, we have, for grades K1 and 2, we have created district curriculum. We did that a lot of it last year. Our goal is to continue on and create our own 3 through 5 curriculum, but as of right now, we're using a program called Generation RX. A lot of the elementary stuff focuses on prescription medicines, is this medicine or is this candy? You should always have, you're a trusted adult. Never take anything from your friend, all those basic type stuff. I know that for the ones that we created, we did add in some beginning work on alcohol, tobacco, and particularly vaping, which, if you are not aware, is a big problem, not just vaping of nicotine, but of THC. And it is starting very, very early. I get calls quite frequently from principals concerned over their 3rd and 4th graders that are or vaping, so.
No,
Yeah. I don't know, again, I just ramble. I did put in a clip, to give you an example of the Safer Smarter Kids curriculum. You'll all be singing the song. You won't wanna watch the whole thing, but if you wanna see a little bit of it, we can watch a quick clip of that. Or at least a little bit of it. Cindy can figure out. I'm gonna sing the song now, I'll be singing this the rest of the day.
Whether it's right at home or out in the unknown, feel safer and smarter. Safer and smarter. No matter what happens today, you can always have a say. Safer and smarter. Safer and smarter. Safer, smarter kids. Hi friends, welcome to Safer Smarter Kids. I'm Lauren, and this is my friend Buddy. We're going to spend some time learning some very important lessons to help you stay safe. I'll be practicing these lessons with Buddy, and you can practice them with your friends. Today, we are going to learn about rules. Rules are so important because they keep us safe. Think about a rule
So
like
this goes on and on and
stopping
on.
at a red light.
These are really good videos. They're very appropriate. The kids love Buddy. The whole,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting because
Safe on the road.
the whole scenario, she gets put in as a cartoon character. What's Lauren's last name? She's a state representative.
Yes,
Lauren,
Manaquista?
no,
No, she's on the East Coast. I'll look it up while you talk.
Okay, anyway, yeah, so, she was a survivor, I believe, of, sexual assault when from a nanny, when she was young, so that's where that came about, and the state has been awesome as far as providing these are free materials that we're able to use, and the kids do really enjoy those. Okay, next slide. I don't know if any of you are familiar, we used to have through our food and nutrition services department, we had a healthy fit and a healthy living lab. It was a trailer and some carts that went out to schools that taught nutrition and fitness. That was ended abruptly, unexpectedly last year, so I'm working right now with University of Florida IFAS Extension, who offers free nutrition education. We're also working with our environmental education guru, Susie Hassett, to get school gardens. And part of that to kind of tie all of it in, this is where fruit comes from, this is how we grow it, this is what it winds up with. And of course, using curriculum that we've developed here. And then many of the elementary schools also have additional unique programs to their schools. At one school you might find during their after-school program, they may do bicycle safety, and then something different at other schools. But there's certainly a lot of areas that we can get needed health education into the elementary schools. Okay, did we skip a slide? Middle school, well, I don't need to, that's just a pretty slide. Okay, so based on our 2017 comprehensive health education policy that was passed by the district, there is a requirement for now for all sixth graders. They either need to take one semester of health education, which is taught by a certified health teacher, or if they cannot get a certified health teacher, they are required to take a year-long course of peer counseling. Basically, the material is pretty much the same, but it allows the teacher who does not have a health background a little more time to be able to go through. I could rattle things off because my degree is in health science education, whereas another teacher, they might not feel as comfortable and need to take a little bit more time with that. So, just to give you some examples, these are the focus areas of instruction. Now, obviously, that doesn't cover everything that's in those competencies that we listed before. But if I'm teaching a semester health course in sixth grade in Lee County, it's a block schedule. I get those kids every other day, that means I see them 45 times. And it's hard to go through and teach substance use and abuse in a couple of days. You know, so we had to find what are our areas that we feel most strongly about that the kids need information in. So that included mental emotional health, substance use and abuse, family life. Puberty is a big thing. Kids, you know, you have children that don't understand what's going on. And maybe, you know, I always said kids are a lot more mature about the topic than some of the adults are that I've dealt with. They legitimately do want to learn, and of course, it's obviously important for them to do so. The family life unit and the communicable disease unit, which would include also sexually transmitted diseases and HIV and AIDS, those both are eligible for the opt-out, which is also in state statute. The opt-out form has been on our district website for several years, and we've even added to it at this point. And again, the sixth graders do get CPR, AED, and first aid training.
So that's in 45 classes.
45 classes. So, and again, we're leaving out basic safety. We're leaving out so much, but we don't have time.
What's included in the family life?
Family life is basically puberty changes that are gonna occur, reproductive system, abstinence being the expected norm, but also the consequences of teen pregnancy, that sort of thing. Yeah, it really at sixth grade is a puberty focus. You know, it showed up there that we do offer seventh grade health and eighth grade health, actually 2 schools, which get a little bit more, obviously as the kids get older, gets a little bit more in depth. Sixth grade is really heavy puberty stuff, because they just don't know. And for many of them, it's a giant relief.
What percent of the parents use this opt-out?
You know, I don't know that we have that data. I can try to get that for you. I know in 26 years at Gulf Middle School, I had three students opted out.
I haven't received a opt-out form since my kids were in elementary school.
That, I'm not sure why that is. I know that it has been on the district website.
Yeah.
But we're not notified when they're gonna be taking the class for you to have the option to opt out or where to find it on the website.
Well, for those,
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, the opt-out form, they cannot opt out of the course.
Right.
They can only opt out of those particular
Right.
topics. I can't answer why you didn't get that. I know it's on the website, it has been for several years. But, we're trying to remedy the oops, I didn't get one. Also keep in mind, the kids a lot of times want to learn this.
That's what I'm
If I
saying, you
hand
just
you a
send it to the
paper-
kid to bring home,
Yeah.
it's not always gonna.
Yeah.
no, I think there's.
Well, we have our opt-out that's,
Notify the parent
that is-
when that's
yeah.
going to.
yeah, and that's what that letter is for. And we're gonna go over the more detailed letter, but that opt-out it's on, you know,
Because with 2 kids, I haven't got one for either
Right.
since elementary school.
right, and we're cracking down and hoping to, no, it wouldn't be, no.
No, they had something that was taught that.
Probably the Procter and Gamble, the puberty thing that the nurses do.
Oh.
Yeah, they separate the boys and girls. Yes, that would be the one,
That's the
yes.
only time I've ever done it.
Yeah.
So can I ask
Yes.
you a question about hope?
Yeah,
I have 2 kids, like I said, that have gone through the system, and to me, it's like once your child knows what high school they're going to, if they're going into any advanced placement type program, ACE, IB, they're almost automatically told, take Hope online. And I think the online version of this course is very much lacking. I never saw it when my daughter did it because she did not need that type of accountability, but my son certainly did. So I saw the course and I'm not sure it's effective online.
so I'm not gonna share my opinion, as a district representative, I am not gonna share my opinion of Hope online. I will tell you that what she said is correct, IB does not require, students who are getting their IB diploma, they are not required to take Hope. It's automatically exempted. If they are an ACE and they complete the program, automatically exempted. If they play junior varsity or varsity sport for 2 years, automatically. If they are in marching band or dance, automatically exempted. Now, I understand the physical aspect of that because Hope is a combined, but where's the health? I mean, I had marching band, and I don't remember learning any health education, well, at least from the adults, at least from the adults, in the group. I learned some things, I don't think they were the things I was really not right, but I did learn those. As I mentioned earlier, our total current enrollment for this year, because it's a year-long course, we got 3,500 out of almost 27,000 students that are getting some kind of health education. And that's it. All right.
Is that because of those exceptions?
What?
There is one point too with the ACE students and the IB students, they're encouraged to take it online, so they still do get the HOPE course. And it is not as effective, in my opinion, too, as the in-person instruction. But that's why our schools are saying take it over the summer, because if they exit the program, ACE, Cambridge ACE or IB, then they do have to take it. So they front load all the what ifs, but also because I really do think that the schools understand the importance of that curriculum. But it is not required, for the ACE program students and IB students, as long as they complete the curriculum, they are not required to have it as a high school grad requirement.
But I kind of like what you said, I'm gonna argue that taking that online, I can tell you the conversations, once I have a class full of students in front of me, and we develop that rapport and they're comfortable asking me questions, I don't see that happening. I could be wrong.
I think though there's a big push from Fort Myers High to do it, because we have friends that go to Fort Myers High, their kids all took it between 8th grade and freshman year. Our kids were going to Benita Springs High, and nobody ever told us to, hey, why don't you have your kid take this over the summer between 8th grade and freshman? It seemed like everyone that was going to Fort Myers High was told to do it.
It'd be interesting to hear from the kids, which group felt
And
like
my
they
daughter
actually
just
got
like,
their
so they encourage her to do it too.
But I do think it helps meet the online component that's required too, so I think they probably look at it as like, okay, we're hitting both things.
But keep in mind, the only feedback I got, now I don't know why my son had to take it because he's varsity baseball 4 years, but it was an easy class for him to take with the head coach of the baseball team coaching the class. So it really was not, in my eyes, a productive class at all.
Well, on the previous slide, it talked about the fact that we have a HOPE core curriculum and a HOPE PE variation curriculum.
Oh, okay, yes.
Years ago, before HOPE came about, there was again, there was a semester of life management skills, which was basically health, and a semester of personal fitness. So you had two distinct things. When the state went to HOPE, now we had a whole bunch of people that were certified PE teachers and a bunch of people that were certified health teachers, but not both. So they came up with this PE variation course. So basically, until we could get people certified in both, they would flip at the semester. So you had this group, you taught them all health. At semester, you switch with PE would come with you. Now PE variation, because we do have a lot of our former PE teachers who are health certified, are now able to teach both components. I will tell you, I have my PE certification. I am not a PE teacher. My degree is in health science. You can ask me your health science questions and I'm good. I passed my PE exam and qualified and certified to teach that. So my focus, if I was teaching a HOPE class, of course my focus is gonna be the health material. If I had been a PE teacher all along and I'm a coach, not that all coaches be this way, but PE was my thing, if that was my jam, then I'm gonna sprinkle in some health education. So we just developed curriculum maps a couple years back, and we're trying to get everybody on the same page, following the same curriculum, same pacing, that kind of thing. Okay. Again, you see the same type of topics in HOPE that we're trying to cover, because now we can get into them in a little bit more depth. We can talk in our mental health about healthy versus unhealthy relationships. That teen dating violent component, because remember, that's 7th grade to 12th grade. I can't teach that to my 6th graders. According to statute, that doesn't come into 7th grade, so I can't even talk to them about those types of relationships until 7th grade or later. Again, that section is also eligible for opt-out. But more detail, family life, we go into gender norms and social norms and things like that. So just more depth, because the kids are at a higher level. Yeah.
Did you have any follow-up data? Like, the kids who go through the program and that have gone through it and have maybe, I don't know, stayed off drugs or, you know, is there anything that can tell you the effectiveness of what is in place for at least that 13?
I have nothing, I can ask, but I doubt we're gonna get an answer that we have tracked that. We're lucky right now to get
I
that.
know, I can't even imagine, but.
I mean, I can tell you that we've had data, we have data showing certain things in our district going down, but that's also a statewide thing that's happening. My argument to that point is until we are teaching kindergarten through 12th grade, and we have an entire group of kids that have gone through all that time, we're never gonna see how effective that program would be. Throwing in a class, one class in middle school and one class in high school, and so we're literally putting out the biggest fires.
And do we have any substance abuse counselors on that?
Specifically, a prevention specialists,
We have, with our mental health services, we have, some of our counselors are licensed mental health professionals or substance abuse certified. Of course, all of that process starts with parental consent, but we do have some that are CAP certified.
So when I was growing up, our middle school had a substance abuse counselor, she was one of the guidance counselors, and she was
Right.
here for the kids who
Yeah.
would walk in as they
And we do have.
felt comfortable, because she was like the cool laid back teacher with the couches and the chair, you know, and people would just go and talk to her. I think that's important to get that rapport, it was middle school, because I think high school, you kind of lost them.
Yeah.
If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it,
Yeah.
by then, I think
Yeah.
middle school's the age, yeah.
Our school counselors and social workers in the middle schools too, we have them in all of our levels, but many times they'll fill that counseling need because they've got the master's level counseling skills. And so even with the substance abuse, we tend to capture a lot of that.
Okay, so we talked earlier about the opt-out letter that has been on the website, and that's been, I know again, I'm in year 29, I've used this opt-out letter, or a version of this opt-out letter for since I started. The district asked me to write or create a new district-wide kind of a reminder opt-out letter. Part of this has to do with, we've apparently not, as a board, yet decided if the opt-out is gonna be part of the beginning of the year paperwork. And, we're realistic, we know parents are busy, there's change of page, check. And we're fearful that we're gonna have a lot more opt-outs. So they asked me to basically create a reminder opt-out for every single grade level and course that is offered. These opt-out letters give much more detail, like we were asking earlier what we're teaching as far as family life in the 6th grade. These give more detail. We had PLCs middle of October. I met with all the middle school health and peer counseling teachers and all of the high school hope teachers. Went through the importance. These need to go out 2 weeks prior to starting any of those opt-out eligible topics. It gives a lot more detail, because many times if I had a parent sign a paper, an opt-out form and send it to me, I would call them and say, are there any questions I can answer? I absolutely respect that this is what you choose, that you don't want your child to be there, but what can I answer to put your mind at ease? Typically, within 5 minutes, they were like, oh, yeah, they can stay. So I would send the letter back and they would say, okay, after speaking with the teacher, it's okay. I made sure that the health, peer counseling and hope teachers are aware that they really need to make themselves available and to speak to parents, because sometimes it's just putting their mind at ease. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do the teachers keep track of the opt-out, or does school administration or guidance counselor?
Typically, the teacher is gonna keep track, because ultimately, they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that if a student is not supposed to be in the room during the discussion of reproductive system, that student's out. They have to go to an alternative location, and they have to be given an alternative assignment that is kind of an in-kind grading. So if they're reading an excerpt from a book and then answering questions, then whatever the alternative assignment is, it has to be the same format of how we're doing that. But really, it's ultimately up to the teacher. Part of this training in October was the teachers are supposed to get with their administration and decide where's their alternative location, what the alternative assignments are, and how are they gonna keep track. And this has certainly been kind of instigated and brought into light more because of the Parent Bill of Rights. Okay? Something to keep in mind, all of those state board of ed rules, all of these recent bills, all of it is part of comprehensive health education. If we just do comprehensive health education, we don't have to have Wellness Wednesdays and change entire school schedules for, a day for them to be able to go through.
Is there, in elementary school, there is nothing?
Nothing, there's no standalone class. Now, you think about elementary, you have their general teachers going to teach their math and their science. They have specials though, it is not classified as a special. We do have one elementary school that is at least using the course codes. I can't wait to go speak with that principal and find out what they're doing. Because they are using course codes for kindergarten through 5th grade, health course codes, so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that could be a prototype.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be kind of proactive to have one person at the school designated to handle the opt-outs. That way, they're kind of familiar with it. It seems like a lot of pressure to put on teachers, honestly, to have to deal with that. And I guess my question would be, if as a district we're having teachers deal with that, teachers really need training on how to deal with that. And I just find that a lot of times, me personally, there seems to be a big breakdown as to what comes out of the district office to what the teachers actually know. So then when you're dealing with the teachers, it's like, well, we don't know what to do, we don't know how to handle it.
And I will tell you that at these PLCs, I went through in detail. I'm old school, so when I would do this, I would write down not only what date the child sent them, when they got it. If I spoke to a parent, I would keep track of that. I understand what you're saying about having one designated person in the school to be in charge of it. But if you were at my school and you were the designated person in charge of it, I'm still in charge of it. I'm still the one physically in the room that I need to make sure.
Didn't sound like, from what you said previously, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of opt-outs anyway.
Depends, a lot of it depends on the school and the programs. I was at the same school for 26 years. I pretty much had a reputation, and the parents were like, we're sending you another one, and there have been schools that have struggled to get certified health teachers. That can sometimes be a problem as well, because there's not a lot of open positions. Okay, Lori's telling me to talk. Okay, so benefits of comprehensive health. We know there's a strong connection between healthy behaviors and academic achievement. We know that kids that have high-risk behaviors tend to have poor grades, poor attendance, all that kind of stuff. Next. Look at red. When you're thinking about answering that compelling question I asked you, think about this. Effective school health programs are intense and begin prior to the onset of risky behaviors. Adequate instructional time is necessary for students to learn essential health education knowledge and skills that are developmentally appropriate and built from year to year. And students in pre-K to grade 2, according to the Joint Commission and the CDC and every group that there's a minimum amount of instruction that needs to occur for a child to actually learn and develop those behaviors. We're talking minimum grades pre-K through 2, 40 hours. 3 through 12, 80 hours of instruction. Okay, block schedule semester, they're not getting 80 hours. That's per year, by the way. This is my favorite. And remember this, because this is what people want to do. A short-term or one-shot curriculum delivered for a few hours at one grade level is generally insufficient to support the adoption and maintenance of a healthy behavior. They forget it before end of the day. And that includes scare tactics that a lot of people want to use. We'll scare them into wearing their seatbelt. We'll scare them into, no, that ain't gonna work. It has to be repetitive. We have to provide adequate amount of, if we expect them to change behavior or prevent those risky behaviors to begin with. Love this quote, when help is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself, art cannot manifest, strength cannot, what does it say? I don't have it memorized.
Right, well, becomes useless and intelligence cannot be applied.
If you're not healthy, right? Okay, so I did leave those index cards if you have any thoughts, suggestions on how we can better make sure that we're getting more comprehensive health K-12. If you click that again for me. Cindy, it'll show the question again. No, one more. Oh, no, that's it, I'm sorry, I'm back. You're right. You're right. And obviously, if you have any additional questions, anything I can answer, if I can't, I can get the answer for you, but you can certainly provide those questions to Cindy, and she will get with me, and I can get back to you, and
If you want to answer questions, go ahead.
yeah, I can answer
If
while
you want to answer now, I'm going to click off this and download.
Okey dokey.
Well, I have a question about the school lunches.
Okay, I don't know that I can answer that, but I will.
Are they really healthy? I mean, I would say that if anything has high fructose corn syrup in it, you're not touching it.
You would be surprised, that's mainly why the kids are complaining so much, because everything is low fat, low salt. That would be a question for Food Nutrition
Well,
Services,
yeah.
but I can assure you that we've had these conversations in our school health advisory committee meetings.
And at the student advisory.
Yes,
And the food's like really clean.
yeah, well, that's because there's no fat, no sugar, and no salt. So, I mean,
You know, I would say that, you know, everything, I'm okay with added sugar in it. The high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
To me, is the thing that's detrimental.
Yeah.
But it would be like if you give them a Nutri-Grain bar, it's like that's what it is, ketchup is like.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying they sneak it in there and, okay, you give them french fries that are totally no salt.
Yeah.
And then they take this ketchup and dump it all over it.
which is
And
something
it's
that
like,
sugar is.
okay, it's
Yeah.
got all this high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just my pet peeve, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
It's, that's definitely a question for, I,
A
that's,
dietary part.
that, yes. But I can say that's part of where the complaints come from the kids, because, I don't know, that's horrible. Well, yeah, but it's low fat and all that good kind of stuff.
I have a question.
Yes,
I noticed that one of the 16 competencies that you had up on there for health educators, it was in number 13, included media literacy. So I'm curious how you address media literacy as part of
internet
comprehensive health
safety,
education.
finding valid, reliable resources online. You know, kids go in, they Google, the first thing that pops up.
Yeah, I know what
that is-
media literacy is, I'm just wondering how you address it.
Well, it depends on, again, what group you're talking to. I mean, we spend a lot of time with the sixth grade just going over basics about valid and reliable. You know, if it ends in EDU, if it ends in org, if it, you know, that if something pops up and you're like, I mean, it is definitely, because they have to learn all that stuff too, to do research papers and various stuff like that. So it's to get them to understand that just because you read it on the internet, wasn't there a commercial about the guy that said some woman said she was dating a French model? And he's like, bonjour, and because she read about it on the internet. We get them to understand factual versus, you know, those reliable sources.
Is there a particular curriculum or platform that you use?
A lot of times that is done, you know, our curriculum, we have a curriculum map, which is basically a guide. It is not if you were to come into my class, you were not gonna get the exact, other than our textbooks, we do have information about that in our teen health textbooks. But you may have some variation of that from school to school. There's a lot about social media, especially with sixth grade, again, back to the
Oh, my
making
kids
them
have
aware.
phones though.
I know.
I mean, they know some of the things better than their parents.
Actually, research says that we all think that kids are digital natives, they're not. They know how to use their phones to access social media, but that doesn't mean that they're literate
No,
in terms of digital citizenship.
Right.
That's why I was curious.
right. And we do have some, curriculum resources that I have a health education resources page that includes digital citizenship information. So we do have some stuff that is shared. But again, that's in our mental emotional health section. If you saw the few number of days, I mean, we've got to cover healthy relationships, we've got to cover suicide prevention, we've got to cover bullying, we've got to cover digital citizenship and internet safety. It's a lot, and I wish I could say to you, we spend an entire week, because we should, right? We should, in this day and age. But we don't have the time. And I see those sixth graders when I had them in my class, and I go, you know what, I know that they may never get any more health education when they leave this classroom, after they graduate from high school. And that's what we're trying to put it into. We need this.
So my contention is there's not enough time not to do it. because of the ramifications, and I've said that a couple times.
And there are so
Even in
many-
a letter to the legislators, which, by the way, anybody who's inclined to write to our legislators, it is on the list this year, so.
Okay,
Just one more question.
Sure.
And this might be more for Ms. McClung, but it seems like I hear about our staffing shortages and we don't have enough certified teachers to teach this. Has the Lee County School District looked at kind of mimicking what the private sector would do when we're like moving, like maybe you have a teacher teach at Fort Myers in the morning and Cypress in the afternoon, or we're doing that?
They have looked at that, they have looked at teacher sharing. We talked about specials, we used to have art and music teachers
Yeah.
that would go to 2 schools. And I know they have looked at that for help, I don't know where
Might
it's
be a
gone.
really good avenue to go down right now. I mean, teachers might like that 30-minute drive in the middle of the day, but it seems like, I mean, that, we may need to look at that for a lot of different teaching situations right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I can double check with HR on that, but I know it's been considered, I don't know where it is.
A lot of the liability companies don't want teachers driving from one school to the other. So there's been state issues in the previous states where a teacher could get into a car accident, and now it's a workers' comp claim. And so they're bad. They try to limit that as much as possible, so risk management will probably be.
Talk about it, yeah.
Especially with our traffic down here, you might try to go from one place to another in March, February.
Yeah, so especially if you're trying to go anywhere to or from Fort Myers Beach.
Correct.
Yeah, or Santa.
Or Santa, yeah.
Well, thank you guys for your time. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but
No, great
any additional questions, like I said, you can send those to Cindy. I will do my best to get answers for you. All right, Missy Lori Brooks.
Thank you.
I know I went too long.
No, you're fine, you're fine. Can you give me a hard stop? You know what time it is, an hour would be about, that's fine. Yeah.
Like 20 minutes from the outside.
Okay. Is it all right if I just stand here so I don't have my back to anyone except, sorry, Julie. Unless you, Laura, I can stand up there because you're over here now. So that's perfect. But do you need me really close? I can talk
If you
loudly.
talk loud, as long as they can hear you.
I'm gonna stand back here. This is so weird to be in the middle of you. All right, so we're going to share quickly because really I do believe the comprehensive health information was critical because it lays a foundation for our students. And we're going to talk further about laying the foundation, but we're also going to talk about addressing areas of need for individual students. So if you could, please. Thank you. This is we really feel, we use this in a lot of presentations, this really demonstrates what our students are carrying in their emotional backpacks, many of them every day. And when we really look at human beings, we all have an emotional backpack, therefore our children do, because we all have stuff we're dealing with, we have junk, but when you really look at, especially in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully we're coming out on the other side of it, we have kids that are carrying more than typical in their emotional backpack every day while they're trying to get on time to class.
And Lori, I'm sorry to interrupt, we do have these 2 presentations and I will be sending them out to you later, so if you're trying to take notes, don't worry about that.
So our objectives tonight really are to talk about the school-based mental health services continuum. How do we implement that? And then what additional supports are we offering because of the pandemic? So what are school-based mental health services? Well, this is a broad spectrum from prevention and really foundational prevention for all students through assessment, intervention, and postvention services for those who may need more and their parents desire that level of service. School-based mental health services are essential to a school's ability to ensure health and safety and a safe environment while we're supporting our students' social and emotional needs and also identifying and responding to mental health challenges. And of course, school-based mental health, you can do one more bullet, thanks, came into being because of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act as a result of that school-based incident. And that really has put school-based services in the center of schools for our students. So we've had an expansion of services. The school-based services, however, really need to dovetail with community-based services so children and youth receive the support they need, but our job is also seamless coordination and comprehensive systems of care. Not all students are going to need outside services. That's the whole point of school-based, is to really capture that early on and assist a student so that they can work through some of those challenges. But we also have some students that are in community-based services, and then our job is wraparound and open communication, provided we have the signed releases to do so. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Sherry for the next
Quick
little
question, how
bit.
long has Lee County School District worked with CPE?
We are in the third year of our agreement with them, and that's because they, that lagged behind the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act by about a year or two. When we did our state meetings, we were one of the only circuits, Circuit 20 was one of the only ones without a circuit mental health crisis response team. And then they got the grant, they were the lead agency, and as soon as they deployed, we developed our MOU with them and included also our SROs and the agency leads and all of the planning around those layers of response.
I learned about it elsewhere, but I think it's important that the kids get that number for CPE, the kids and the
Yes.
families, so they know where to call.
The great news is that
they're
we
great.
have on the back of the ID cards, we are sending them to print now. We have stickers with the suicide prevention, the hotline, the text line, and the number to mobile crisis. We also have Fortify Florida and Crime Stoppers on there. So on the back of every student ID card, it'll be a
Okay.
sticker, but when we actually produce the ones in the future, it'll be right on the back of it. So the schools will be getting those probably by January. Great suggestion.
Good question. And so when Lori was talking about like the different tiers and different systems of support, this triangle kind of just like outlines what we call like our different tiers of support across the board. So the first tier is like universal prevention. That's like social emotional learning. That is what every student in our schools, they all get these universal preventions. And then when we're talking about the higher levels of support, we're talking about some of those students, like Lori said, that really could use a little extra support within the school system. That may be group support, that may be social emotional, that may be some social skills groups, those kinds of supports that we can provide at the school level. And then as we start working with those students, especially in this, the level 2s of supports, we're really looking at, are we making an impact? How is this impacting not only the student, but their academics and their education? And how is this behavior and some of these things affecting their ability to move on educationally? And so when we start looking at that, we are constantly assessing. And we can also provide a higher level of support. We do have, like Lori said, we do have licensed mental health professionals in our schools, along with other master's level clinicians who are able to provide those higher level of supports. What we really, really want to avoid is having our students have to go out and get outside supports if we can do that preventive stuff right within the school.
Is there a licensed mental health professional at each school?
Not at each school, I wish.
We
How do they get
will.
those?
When we're fully staffed, every school will have days of that. Every high school has a full-time LMHP, but right now they might be at 4 days because they're covering an elementary. But we're hiring slowly because everyone's has a human capital deficiency. But we're hiring steadily. We're getting really good quality licensed people. And once we're fully staffed, every school will have services provided at least one day. But our high schools will have more, our middles will have more, our elementaries will have a day or two.
Sherry, how do people get referred? Like where does that come from?
Those are really good questions. They come from, they can come from anyone, like a parent can call the school and ask to talk to like the school counselor, the school social worker, the school psychologist, and kind of walk through the different supports that they feel like their student may need. A school administrator or a school teacher can also come to like, the licensed mental, or the mental health team members, which we're gonna go over here in a minute, who those people are. And say, hey, I have a concern about this student, this is what I'm seeing maybe in my classroom, or the parent can call and say, this is what we're seeing at home, and I know that my student is struggling at school because, you know, I'm seeing their grades, I'm kind of getting phone calls from the teacher, I'm getting phone calls from administrators, and I don't know what to do. So we really encourage our parents to reach out to our school-based mental health professionals who are our school counselors, our school social workers, and our school psychologists. they're at those schools like a majority of the time.
So do
Yeah,
you
board-
feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Board member Fisher brought this up earlier about going to the state and asking for more money. And as you know, your lobbyist, Carol Green, did a great job of writing that whole thing up. And just so everybody in the room knows, Friday, Florida League of Cities is having a meeting it's gonna be hosted in Sanibel. We're gonna have all the elected officials there from the state. There's 2 senators and the other congressional folks. But anyway, the moral to the story is we'll have talking points. This is gonna be my talking point for Friday, just to re-enhance and send a message. We've already done this with the 2 meetings we had previous this year.
We appreciate it.
And Carol Green has done a good job with
Yes,
that,
she
but
has.
we wanna keep pushing this along. This is like one of my hottest buttons in the 5 years I've been here. I brought this up a couple of times, it's a great presentation, and it's a little scary. I just have a real quick question, I'm gonna get off my tangent here. But we just had some handgun issues where the sheriff came in, and was that part of this? Are the teachers starting to identify the behavior and seeing things brewing in a student's mind or their behavior in the classroom, or?
We're actually going to get to a slide where we talk about all the prongs of our approaches from education all the way through. Our teachers' noticing skills have increased because of training, but also our students, because we're talking more about mental health, we're talking about school safety, we're talking with them about if you see something, say something, but say it to an adult. And we do notice that we have a lot more students and teachers, really, they see things differently, and they're looking for kids that may be struggling before they become, students of concern as far as bringing a weapon to school, but also even just struggling. Fewer than, I think it's 97% of individuals with a mental health challenge do not become violent. But really, it's a lot of it has to do with all the prevention we need to be doing and the social emotional learning and helping kids. And if a child has one trusted adult in their life, it really increases their graduation rate and also their ability to make those positive decisions.
The scary thing of these incidents that were followed up on was that the parents do all these weapons were in the house, and it was like, if we can't count on the peer students in the classes, see something, say something, we're gonna be in trouble. But evidently, they've done a pretty decent job with it.
So I was happy to hear Sheriff Morosino say that parents have to be parents and they have to be involved. It can't always be the responsibility of the school, I mean, really. And so the first thought that crossed my mind when the young child brought a weapon to school. I mean, I'm like, don't arrest this child, because sometimes that happens with young kids, and that's inappropriate. Get with the parents, because they have a responsibility to make sure that their kids are safe, at least to the time they get on the bus, and then we take over. But it has to be a partnership, so I really like that approach that our local law enforcement has been very supportive.
And this starts in kindergarten, right?
As we have this K-12 as far as mental health services, yes, from prevention all the way through intervention.
And so this is just a real quick slide that I'm just kind of not gonna read it to you, but basically it talks about how just these basic mental health supports, comprehensive mental health supports can help our students with student engagement, our school climate, but it also helps with our absenteeism, our discipline referrals, bullying, all the way through the dropout rate, because we are an educational system, we are Lee County Schools, and our main goal is to have our students be successful. And in order to do that, we need these supports in place so that they can have some of these social skills and have some of these supports in order to be successful.
So when, back on that slide, when a teacher is maybe seeking help for a student or a parent calls the school to get help, are you documenting those calls in a child's record? Then where are those kept? How is HIPAA law, how are HIPAA laws?
Oh, that's a good question, that's a very good question. Yes, I mean, nothing goes in like their permanent cumulative record, obviously, that's not something that, like if you move from, that's not gonna be reported to college or anything like that. It's just, we keep it in the system because we need to know who we talk to and what time we talk to them and what the outcome of that Everything that we do, we do it with parental consent. As far as like the higher levels of support, we are reaching out, your school-based mental health professionals are constantly reaching out to the parent, saying, how can I help you, what are some additional supports that you need? So.
Sherry, if I could just interject for a minute, I think it's an important delineation that we make now, because on our slides, we'll get to it, but I think now it'll help. When we're working with students, school counselors, social workers, school psychologists, we all have master's level or higher degrees. I'm leaving out our licensed staff because they deal only with students that parents consent for mental health, and it's like our tier 3. But our school counselors, social workers, and psychologists, in their typical way of work with students, they're not in the mental health piece. They're doing social emotional support. It's just our typical services. But when we're talking about a child of concern referred to us through any of those mechanisms, sometimes it's the student, him or herself, that's where the school mental health team that Sherry's going to talk about, the team approach, that's where they meet and talk, and the parental consent comes in. And that's when we get into the mental health services. And then we also do have to document, because the state requires us to say how many sessions, how the frequency and duration, what are the expected outcomes, and is the child improving? And if not, what else are we going to do? And go back to the parent with and the team to say, what else can we be doing out of our other evidence-based practices? So.
Well, sometimes you made an interesting comment that 97% of mental health stuff does not have violence.
Correct.
So when you think about that, think about like anxiety, for example. Those children are silenced. They are in a classroom, silence. And no one even knows. I mean, I have one, you know what I mean? And so there's like, to get that student, and not always are they bad students.
Hardly ever.
Do you know what I mean? They're not bad
No.
students. I mean, they're generally fairly good students. And
Right.
so that takes a high level of skill to identify that child.
Right.
I mean,
We have screeners that we use only with parental consent. Would it be okay, I just don't wanna take up too much of your time, and we have about 1 minute left. So how would you like us to proceed?
So to the chair, if you wanted to ask for consensus, whether we want to extend the
wrong?
meeting or if we want to invite them to come back next
so it's
time,
really 7:15.
what is the,
My
This is fascinating.
My idea would be to continue it and go a little long tonight.
Okay.
Just because I think we have to end tonight with more of a direction of what we're gonna do as a committee. I don't think we wanna go into the 4th meeting not really knowing what we really wanna start working on. So I would ask everybody, if you agree or disagree. I don't think it's gonna be 30 minutes or 40 minutes. I think-
If we can hold questions, we'll get through everything, and then I think we can entertain them all at once, because many will be answered throughout our slides.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Great.
Tammy, are you okay with that?
And just
Most people said yes, so we're gonna go on.
And just a quick shout out about Carol Green. When I was on the board of the Florida School Counselor Association, she was our advocate, and this is my PSA for school counselors. In 1999, our name was changed from guidance counselor to school counselor, and that was a result of the legislation. There was a lot more in that bill, and a lot was slashed from it, but as our advocate, she was wonderful, and the professional name was officially changed. So she is a good advocate. Lobbyist, yeah.
So basically, our focus on evidence-based mental health practices, that includes like a provision of mental health services to students with mental health, or this is right directly from Florida State statute, is that we are required to provide these services under the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act to not only students with mental health concerns, but also co-occurring substance abuse diagnoses. Somebody had asked earlier about substance abuse, and we are required by law also to kind of look at that and address that as much as possible. And then when we talk about coordinating those services, we always want to coordinate services with signed parental consent, with our primary care providers or any other mental health providers. So if a student is receiving like outside services, say your student is receiving like therapy from Elite DNA or Solace Care or a private provider, we may want to ask if the school can talk to those providers, not to get into the actual treatment, not into saying, what is your child saying in session? What is in the treatment plan? What is the diagnosis? What we really want to be able to coordinate those services is how can I as a school support this student at school? you are working with this student, clinically, what can we do at the school to support them? If they have anxiety, what are some different things that we can do in the school to support them so that if they have an anxiety attack, or what does that look like? So when we're talking about those coordination of services, we're always talking about with signed parental consent. And we also, we have wonderful partnerships with, you mentioned CPE, Center for Progress and Excellence. We have partnerships with Salus Care. We have partnerships with Valerie's House for grief support.
Hanley Center.
Hanley Center, yes. Yes. And we have, with Golisano Children's, they provide some mental health navigators for us that really support our families. So we are really, probably within the last 3 years, I've only been in this position for about 3 years, we have really, really focused on building those community partnerships because we cannot do this alone. We have not, as you know, we have almost 96,000 students, and that's a lot of students and families. So we really rely on those partnerships. So now this really gets into who are our school-based mental health practitioners. And like Lori said, it's our master's level clinicians. All of our school counselors, our school social workers, and our school psychologists are all master's level practitioners. And we have our licensed mental health professionals, which we have only had those in our schools within the last couple of years. We started adding them. And our school nurses, because it's really important that as a clinician, if I hear that a student is on some kind of medication, I don't know what those side effects are. And I don't know what that looks like. And that's really important because a lot of times when we're talking, teachers or parents come to us and they say, my student is sleeping in class, or they're having a hard time paying attention. And the nurse can kind of get in with signed parental consent and say, what are the medications that they're on? And what are the side effects, and kind of really help the school and the teams kind of work together to kind of see what we can do with those side effects and how we can help the student. And so we provide prevention, intervention, and crisis response. Obviously, if we have a school crisis, we unfortunately had to do that several times this year when we have, crisis at our school. We may have a staff member that dies, we may have a student, those kinds of things, and we all go out and try to support that staff and that school and those students as much as possible. And each one of our schools has a school mental health team, and this is a multidisciplinary team, and I think that's the most important thing, is that best practice and evidence-based practice shows that the more that we team and the more that we communicate with each other, that includes all of our school-based mental health professionals, and it includes our teachers and other professionals in the schools who are working with those students, and we're gathering information. We're gathering information so that we can come up with a plan to help support your student the best that we can within the academic setting. So we organize and structure our school mental health services, and we want to make sure that we are evidence-based and that we have a clear plan on how we can support the students. Our mental health teams also coordinated, like I said, across programs and supports within the schools. And we talk about universal mental health promotion. Those are those social emotional skills that are so needed within our students. And we capitalize on our resources and again, a lot of that community coordination.
Thank you, Sherry. In our school mental health teams, we say that they're collecting the dots and connecting the dots. Every part of the fabric of a student's life, from the parent feedback, the student, we do take into account teacher feedback, but at the team meetings, it's just what we call the core four. It's our master's level mental health professionals. Because of confidentiality, we're gathering information, but we are the only ones around the table really talking about with the parent and the student what the need is. Our highest service provision is children with anxiety and symptoms of depression. It's ripe for school-based intervention, and that is something that we can definitely help with. Many parents already have services, or they want to go outside and keep that apart from the school, and we honor and respect that. But for a lot of parents, they can get these free services. We do small groups and individual counseling for those services. And again, it's evidence-based practices. The state is clear on that we don't just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. We need to be intentional about this work. So these are the 5 T's for mental health in schools. We definitely want kids, parents, teachers talking about mental health. We need to reduce the stigma around these conversations. Mental health is a medical issue when we're talking about clinical mental health. And mental health in schools before we end up really having a student getting assessed and digging into the DSM-5 and a diagnosis results. That's not what we do. But when they go out into the private sector or community mental health, that is what is going to happen because it is a HIPAA-protected medical process. In school, we're more about that school-based support. But we need to increase awareness and encourage and promote productive conversations. To that end, we have Wellness Wednesdays for parents, 1 Wednesday a month, and that is something that every parent is notified and every staff member in this district through School Messenger, it's on our district website, and we offer that with experts from the field on different topics. Our last topic was really actually one of our students and a mental health navigator from Golisano talking about how to support your child with their mental health. And it was a really good conversation to have a student contributing. How was your parent helpful? Who were the meaningful adults in your life? What worked? What didn't? And then on December 1st, we are going to have Valerie's house talk through supporting your child through grief and the holidays. So we felt like that was a timely topic, and Sherry identified that, and Valerie's house has been a great partner. But you can see on the blue column on the left, we have various, this does not cover everything, but these are all the ways we're trying to increase the community conversation, the student, parent, and staff conversations. We provide a live training to teachers and staff. We do for youth mental health first aid, that is the gold standard training required by the Department of Education, but we also have on-demand cognito mental health awareness training. We do trauma-informed practices with our schools. We have trust-based relational intervention. There are 4 of us on staff that are practitioners. It was a very rigorous multi-month training, and it's really helping teachers deal with kids from hard places that have had trauma. And then prepare school crisis prevention and intervention training. Myself and another administrator went over to help reopen Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. That is the training that all of our mental health professionals have to have so that you can actually, we were in classrooms with children who were in that 9th grade building as they returned to school. It's very intensive training to help us support kids and adults who have had trauma. We teach. We talked about the comprehensive health plan. Wellness Wednesdays, all the things, prevention services, all of the SEL programs that our schools are incorporating, we're layering in the teaching. The tools, number 4, is really the service provision. Those are the services we're providing to students that might want or need those services, the mental health services. And then we try to really work hard to take care of our teachers and our staff. We have through our human resources department, we have a lot of layered resources, but include counseling in that. And they can access free counseling, our educators can, but we really would prefer, and we have for them, other prevention programs like the LIFT project. And then also a lot of tools on our website under human resources for what can I do with self-care apps and whatnot. And then our school leaders work really hard to make sure that within their own buildings, their staff feel that they're supported, they have opportunities to laugh and to engage and really try, like we do with our students, to have mindful moments around what else is going on for us besides the intensive needs in our schools and under a pandemic. So I'll very briefly go through the special supports we have for COVID because we know the impact this has on student and family mental health. So back in summer of 2020, after our 3-month-ish shutdown, we had these programs put into place and they're continuing at least for another year as far as the funding we've embedded into that. And so if you would, you can go to the next slide. We have a resiliency toolkit. We actually have 2 of them. And our teachers can access lessons, they can access tools to use and resources. We have curriculum like our social emotional learning curriculum to really help kids identify and work through what emotions might feel like, look like, and how to appropriately express them and deal with that. We also have expanded our services in individual and small group counseling for those who go through the mental health screening process with parental consent. And then we added additional mental health staff at our schools, but most importantly, we have a relationship, we built out another part of a partnership called community family response teams. Our schools will refer families in need to CFIRT, and this has to be a stressor caused by the pandemic that is impacting a child enrolled in school, but we help families with finding housing, paying their bills, accessing services. They might just be so overwhelmed they don't even know where to start. It's the first time their child or they have experienced a mental health impact, and so our CFIRT teams have experienced a lot of referrals since the summer of 2020. We have a mental health and wellness portal. This has been a labor of love. It really was not ever part of the mental health requirement, but our staff put this together in 2019. And that link is live, so when you get the presentation, if you click on it, it's our district website. We really wanted to create a portal, not only for our parents, but for community members, that if they're up in the middle of the night and they just, want to click on any topic, they can, or if they're looking for something specific, they can do that. And we have many community partnerships, as we said, some of which are up there. And we're always evaluating and adjusting. So every year we analyze our results. This is a marathon, it can't be a sprint. We also then after we assess our outcomes, we look at what else do we need to do differently. That changes our board approved and state filed mental health plan on an annual basis. And that outcome data is exactly what drives our continuous improvement. And we keep adding community partnerships because we know we need every help we can get and additional funding sources. When we were building this program, I had a lot of community providers that I met with, and I was gauging the ones we know we can trust, and they also told us we have to look at our managing entities out in the community. The providers that said, tell me how much money you have and I'll tell you what I can do, I said, thank you for meeting with me. We were done. I wanted to know who in the community would meet us at the table in our place of need for our kids and not ask me how much money I could give them, but what can they do to help us serve our children. Most of our partnerships were at no cost to the district because we were all eager to partner together because they can't do this work alone. Parents can't do this work alone, and the district can't. So in 3 short years, we have come a really long way, but I always want to remember, and our staff keeps in mind, parents are the gateway to services. So if they say yes, then we work with them and say, here's what we can do and what we have to offer. If they say no, thank you, we need to honor and respect that, and we just support them and their child because they also have their right to handle things the way that they so choose. And school-based mental health services may or may not be the right answer for them, but for a lot of kids it is. So, thank you for allowing us to stay late.
Yes, thank you.
I'll open it up for questions in a minute. When you reach out to parents to get their approval, what percentage would you say agree to it versus saying we don't want anything to do with it?
I would say we probably like about 90% of parent approval because we're really building that, not only are school-based mental health professionals building that relationship with the student, but we want to build that relationship with the parent because we can't work, it's a whole system. You can't just help the student at school without involving everybody. And so we're building those relationships. I mean, some are like, no, I'll take care of it on my own, but I would say we probably have a 90% of our parents that we contacted are like, yes, I'm willing to sign the paperwork so that you guys can do what you need to do.
Do you think it's a language issue or is it a denial issue in most situations?
Mostly I think it's privacy.
It is, it's privacy, it's
Yeah.
privacy, they
And-
choose to go outside of the school district to get those
So at least
services.
at least they're getting.
Correct,
It's
I'm
not
right,
just denying it, saying it's not
Right.
happening.
A lot of our school-based, as far as our LMHPs and also our contracted, where we can do referrals and kind of clear the path for parents that want the referrals. A lot of our services are bilingual also.
Yes.
And we also have some LMHPs that speak Creole. So we've got a lot of language, availability. But yeah, I'd say privacy, but also sometimes it's a readiness factor. And sometimes parents have concerns, but they're not yet ready, and then they'll come back and say, I really do wanna try this, and other times, kids are a little bit stuck and they're not ready to screen, but then kids kind of get unstuck sometimes and they don't even need to go down the path of, do we wanna screen and then have a, we can just do some social emotional support.
Is there a social, like within the students, I'm not talking about the parents, is there like a social, like stigma with going to the counselor? I don't know, I mean,
Our students amazingly, I would say no.
No, I'm gonna say
Totally
no too,
open.
because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm out visiting schools and
Yeah.
there's like kids like coming
Yeah.
and knocking and sticking their faces on the door and
Yes.
saying, hey, is anybody in there?
Yeah.
So we're constantly,
I think that's progress.
it is progress, you're
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
correct.
Yeah. It's a conversation now that is not whispered, it's spoken. And that's an amazing foot forward for our children and for adults.
I will say though, we were a family that really needed help with some of these services and were never offered them. Not once. And it was a failure, and they were aware of the issues.
And I would,
I wrote some of the information.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We can follow up.
And I would welcome the opportunity to talk through that because we consistently.
Because I push and saw,
Yeah.
outside, but not everybody has the means or the
Correct.
knowledge to do
Yeah.
so.
Correct.
Yes.
And we could
Correct.
lose
Yeah.
students,
Yes.
lose their lives if that isn't done.
And I will share, and that is true, and I will share too that until we were able to get more fully staffed with our LMHPs, our school counselors, social workers, and psychologists are so overwhelmed, they were struggling to kind of squish mental health into all the other things they had to do. And we're getting better at that because we're adding more of them too. However, the LMHPs have really helped with their caseload consistently as the students that have been staffed to their level, and this is probably a bad expression, but they churn and burn, like they have their caseload, their calendar, they do every single day, they're seeing at least 6 to 7 kids, which is a lot for mental health counseling in one day.
CPE told me they're getting millions of calls a day, they can't even get to them all. And that the majority of parents aren't involved or supportive in their helping their child.
We do have, so we're
And that was
on.
unfathomable, so isn't that then a liability, is don't you still have to report the need for that care somewhere if the parents are refusing the assistance?
So for our students with suicidal ideation, we have very specific protocols we're required to follow, and now they're in state statute, but we were using them as best practice, so that was good. When they were actually codified in statute, we were doing the right thing. But as soon as we screen a student with the Columbia screener, it's a baseline 6-question screener, we're calling the parent either to come in and talk with us if it's a low-level ideation according to the screener. But if it warrants the mobile crisis team, we're still calling the parent and we're calling the team because we want the parent there with the team. And that is where sometimes we do have reluctant parents, even when the student is not going to be involuntarily hospitalized, which is our last resort. But they will decline services from CPE because CPE can actually hook them into counseling if they would like clinical counseling. And we do.
The ADOS testing, waited 9 months, couldn't get it scheduled anywhere.
Yes.
CPE had a schedule within 2 weeks.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
they did, the
Yep.
ADOS?
yeah, they do amazing work.
John Hopkins was on a 3-year wait to have it done.
Yes, I know the wait, that's why I'm like amazed.
Yeah.
I did not know that, that's good
And
to
it was
know.
local, it was right up Riverwalk.
I know, oh, wow.
So we do have a declination sometimes of services, but I do think sometimes, and we have, every other Friday we meet with CPE, but when we hit tough issues, they're texting us and we're talking to their clinical director daily. But I think too that sometimes it's that heat of the moment and it shocks a parent, like my goodness, my child's in crisis. And they don't need to be Baker acted, but they have to have time sometimes to just unpack that. And then they will sometimes come back and engage those services, so.
Yeah, but I didn't know of any of these services, and I've had kids in the school district for it's my 13th year, I mean, I never knew.
And we are 3 years in, but it has taken some time for us to get our legs under us. But also the Department of Education has been giving districts more guidance on what is, when we had school-based mental health at first, we're like,
I don't know that we're supposed to or allowed to really do this. It was a huge shift.
And Ms. Fisher can like
Yeah.
attest to my being an involved parent
Right,
and never knew.
yeah. It was a big shift for our staff, but also even our parents that were aware of it, because we had not been able to
And you don't want that in
in
your
the
kid's
progressive
student
areas
record,
of
and I see
Florida.
them fearing that.
What's
Like,
that?
Being on their student record, I can see parents fearing
Right.
that.
Yes, and on the East Coast, they had school-based mental health services and even clinics on campus in some districts. Broward had that, and they, and so on our coast, we did not have this level of service, and also we had to really wrap our brains around it as a community, that mental health could be in schools, because it really was it's kind of a mind bender. My child's here to be educated, please don't, I'm okay talking about it, but you're not supposed to be doing this. And so we had to really work through it, and I think now in Florida, it's just more widely, it's part of school-based services.
Well, I like the referrals, telling people where to go to help, not necessarily doing the counseling yourself,
Right.
but to get people in the right hands.
Yeah.
And we really never did that.
Right.
No.
But I'm saying, I think that's what some people fear,
Right, yeah.
but if they could just be put in the right direction.
But if the stigma is going away,
Yes.
if it's lifting, and it doesn't become a social constraint for the
Mm-hmm.
child in the classroom, they're not being made fun of, there's
But then
more
it's
of
the
the
parents,
dialogue.
well, I don't want you hanging out with that kid, they're, problem.
I mean, I guess that's.
And you want that.
But I just have to say, I think this is remarkable.
Thank you.
It's
been a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of
I think,
sleepless nights.
I think we need to keep moving, you have a question?
I had two questions. One, do you guys work with voc rehab?
Our exceptional student education department does, and so we will frequently talk with them about those services, but they're the ones that are responsible for engaging that with our students at like their IEP meetings and things like that.
And then other questions, how is poverty and violence dealt with when addressing mental health for you guys?
Really, it's through the lens of trauma.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's
Yeah.
a really good question.
Yeah.
And it's really, we really spend a lot of time educating our staff on how to address that and to have like a trauma lens. So what that looks like, especially like as a school social worker, it's an education piece for our staff and for our parents, because poverty and neglect are two very different things. And what does that look like, and how do we interact with those families and work with them through that? And so we do spend a lot of time really looking at the effects of poverty, how we can help those families as your social workers and your school counselors, what resources we have can connect those families to in our community to help with that, but also to work with those students within the school and support them that way.
All right, I got two follow-up questions.
Sure.
One, in our district, I hear us always talk about the 96,000 kids, but what does that equate to as far as families? You guys may not have that answer, but what's the actually family number versus kids?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Because we should never break it down by kids, we should break it down by families.
family.
And then that brings me to the CFRT,
Yes.
the Community Family Response Team.
Yes.
How do I get to be a part of that group? Or how do I get to find out what does that consist of?
So our students in need, they would be referred. We meet with the parent if there's a mental health need. And the student has to be the one enrolled in our school that's showing a need.
But no, not necessarily that. I'm talking about
Oh.
the actual group itself, what's in CFRT.
I did not define that, and I apologize. And my team laughs at me because they're like, why do you put so many words in things?
No, I just wanted to, because here's the
The
thing.
CFER.
Well, no, because
Yeah,
we're saying it's a crisis response team, right?
No, well,
Well,
no,
Community Family
CFER.
Response Team.
The Community Family Response Team is to help kids that need counseling, but the family has other layers of need as a direct result of COVID. That is.
That's only through the COVID Act though.
That
Only
is
because of
true.
COVID.
Yes.
So then my question is this.
Yes.
What do we have in emergency that's not COVID related, but we got all this other stuff going on?
Okay.
What's our response for that? And that's what I'm trying to get to the family
Okay.
number
Right.
as opposed to the
Right.
kids. Cause you may have 6 kids in one family, but that's
You're
still one
right.
family.
Right.
And we'll say it's 6 people, but it's
Yeah.
really one unit.
See, and that's where CFER would deal with the whole family.
But only
But you're, right, but actually, it's loosely knit, okay? So tying something to COVID for a family, and this was our partnership, it doesn't have to be like, well, really show me how this is related to COVID. Everyone has extra stressors from COVID, so a lot of our referrals, they don't have to say, well, I lost my job because of COVID, it triggered this. It's really, we have this pot of money that we're serving these families at no charge. And if a part of it is, but it's more short term, I will say that, that's the delineation. This is for families that may only need 6 months, not 2 years of services, okay? So that is a good delineation to make. But, so we tie it loosely to COVID, but they can get referred and get services for the whole family in need. But I also wanna address, as far as any crises, that would be that mobile crisis response team from CPE. The CPE is,
Is this the number for CDB?
yes, yeah.
Now CPE is something district related, this is some part of the
Yeah.
district?
That is, that's a mental health provider in the
So-
community.
Gotcha. So at the district level, what is our, well, I guess the CFER,
Right,
anybody could call that in response for short-term needs. But say for instance, I've been in the school district, graduated in '97, 2 kids through college, got one in elementary, one in middle school now. Ran a tutoring company, tutored thousands of kids in the district. So my question is like, it's a whole family thing that I see. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we solve the problem of a family versus an individual, because we like to individualize things. And I'm trying to say, how do we get to a whole family? And what is the district's, and it may not be mental health, it may not be this avenue, but I'm trying to find out, and maybe that's something we talk about in our group, because I wanna figure out, I'm here for solutions. So I'm trying to figure out, how do we solve the problems of families as a whole? Because if it's a couple of people in the family, it's probably more than one in the family that's got some issues. So I'm trying to figure out, how do we identify the families? And what do we do for the families? Because if we're talking about poverty, we're talking about trauma, any of these things,
yeah.
you can identify in this one.
And you're right, ours is more mental health and the plus. So a lot of times through mental health, it identifies additional needs. And so as far as, and like you said, it may not be mental health, our school social workers are at every school, and they're very good at starting to identify needs in a family, but we have to connect with the families. And so we do outreach, but we also need families to trust us to also call and say, I have some needs, you know, and that could lead, that's why all these people are on our school mental health teams too, because it doesn't have to be a mental health piece, but it puts us all around the table weekly to talk about students in need. And Sherry and I worked in the same school and worked down the wall from each other. Our offices were next to each other, but we had hallway conversations. We'd pass in the hallway. There were times I was working with a student I had no idea was homeless. And so the school mental health team puts everyone around the table, and that's where everyone's saying, this is what I know about this student. But sometimes our meetings are not just mental health, they're service meetings. We just talk. We have PLCs in our buildings that are separate from the mental health team meetings, but it puts all of those same people in a weekly PLC, and they can talk about needs.
Does everybody know what that is?
A professional learning community. And so our teachers have PLCs related to their student data and their subject area or grade level, depending if they're in elementary or they're a subject. We have PLCs for our student services, so school counselors, social workers, psychologists.
Just to not drag this on, because I don't want us to be here too long. My sister's a school psychologist in Orlando. She's a licensed psychologist. Can I get somebody's card to get in touch with you guys outside of this? To talk about some things?
Absolutely.
That'll work.
Michelle had some questions.
I actually just have one, it's probably gonna be the lead-in for you, Brian, so here we are. I would like to know what the measures are in the strategic plan for SEL, because I noticed that the first grouping in Envision 2030 ends in 2020, and so now we have 2021, you know, for the next group of years. So I maybe it's somewhere, but I wasn't able to find it in my previous notes about the specific measures in the strategic plan, because we know that this committee is about evaluating the strategic plan. So I would like to address if there are measures in the strategic plan for SEL and what they are and how they get evaluated at the end of the academic year when we report to the board.
So I will not the lead SEL person on our team, so I can't answer with fidelity, because SEL is part of the mental health continuum, but SEL by itself is a major initiative that is led by a couple other directors on our student services team. So we would have to get some information from them to answer that question. We typically do look at, though, attendance, discipline referrals, but it's very difficult because internally we have this discussion when we do our goals. How can you tie that directly back to SEL? So when you look at attendance, grades, and course performance, referrals, and then also we have a survey that we do annually about measuring that students, do they know and to what extent that there's a caring adult in their building that they can go to. We really have tried to drill that down, and we have a couple of tools that we have looked at to measure outcomes, and there are a couple of tools that can really do that for us that we are considering.
So the short answer is, there's one specific measure on the strategic plan, and it is that measure about there's a child, there's an adult in my school that cares about
Somebody
me.
cares about them, yeah.
Right, that's the one big measure that's specifically on the strategic plan. There are other supporting measures, and so we talk about key work processes and supporting processes. So there are some measures that they track in terms of their support processes that don't necessarily rise to the strategic plan level, but are part of those strategies. And so they're big, and it needs a whole lesson on goal setting. But the key performance indicators, the KPIs, they would have those at their department level. They might not necessarily reach up to the strategic plan level because we look at them more as ongoing indicators of are they on track to meet those bigger goals. So we can talk to Chuck and see, do they have specific ones that we can bring back to you that look specifically at SEL?
Yeah, this is definitely gonna be an overall question for me with regard to the strategic plan for this committee. So I don't know necessarily I wanna keep you guys here for, by the way, I think what you're doing is awesome, and I appreciate the tremendous amount of work that this is, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, is there a question?
Hi, in the peanut gallery. So one of my favorite books from high school is A Catcher in the Rye. And the tragic irony of that was Holden Caulfield wants to catch these kids that are at risk of running off this cliff because some clown has built a playground on a cliff in a field of rye on top of a cliff. That's fine and dandy for Holden Caulfield to do that if there's only 2 or 3 kids running around. But if there's 20 or 30 kids running around in this field of rye on a cliff, he's not gonna be able to save them all without help. My question is, do you have sufficient resources to cope with the increase in mental health issues? I could talk from the hospital perspective, the number of kids that hit mental health crisis, it's tenfold than it was a year ago. That means that your numbers are probably gone up at least tenfold as well. And we have sufficient resources to catch all the kids that are at risk.
No.
We don't, and we have, like I said earlier, that human capital shortage is crippling us across the state and the country. But when I talk to our bureau chief for student services, who oversees everything but including mental health, and we talk about weekly about the shortage of mental health staff, those kind of core 4 people we list. We have shortages in every area, not only nationally, but statewide. And now with our LMHPs, we're almost competing with our agencies for those licensed staff too. So we don't have enough people. And we didn't before the pandemic, but it was not nearly as critical.
What other alternatives are available, given that you're resource constrained? What other creative?
So we really need to invest our time too, and we talked about this during the pandemic. We needed school-wide, we need to continue this effort, we really need school-wide SEL on steroids. We need to, teachers doing some of the required instruction has been difficult, like Leisha mentioned earlier, we have comprehensive health, but we have health classes that now we have a lot of kids that have other opportunities to bypass them, right? And if the state would just, and I know it takes a lot of money and a lot of leverage, but if they would just put health instruction in every grade, we would not be cobbling together and pulling kids and time away from other subjects to push in all these, you're like squishing in, it's like holes in the dam. You're constantly trying to put your fingers in it, and if the legislature would just say, everyone's having health, we'd still have to get all the certified teachers, we would have a heck of a foundation for our children. And we all know, not all of our kids come to school with the same basic skills and kind of that upbringing that most of us had. We have to kind of fill in a lot of gaps to get them classroom ready,
And just,
okay?
and just to echo that, I mean, starting kids in kindergarten
Mhm.
and really teaching them how to develop those skills
Yes.
and the resiliency that they need. And no matter what the decision is that they're dealing with, it's a high-risk situation, if they have those basic skills that they've built on from year to year to year. But a lot of them come in and, you know, they have had nothing.
Their coping skills box has already been built.
Yeah.
And so we don't have enough tools in the toolbox for them. And now we're really trying to stem the tide of mental health and severe mental health concerns because they lacked the basic skills, some of them, to really know what to do with all of this. And so the resiliency is critical. And building resiliency in children is not something that is a goal that we reach. It is an ongoing process. I'm 51 and I'm still building resiliency, you know? So I don't want to look at our kids through a deficiency lens by any means, because every parent is doing the best they can with what they know and the tools they have. We're just struggling because even as a society, this is my opinion and my observation, but even as a society, we have really lost a lot of the resiliency we used to have. So no, we don't have the human capital, but this really is going to take, and almost to your point, this takes everybody doing this work and really wrapping their arms around our kids, and we're just not there anymore, even close to it, even societally.
And in the medical field, you know the benefit of being health literate. You know, less than 30% of the adult population is health literate. Think of what we could have if we created health literate kids from the time they enter the school system. I mean, think about how things would be different. We'd have healthcare then, we wouldn't have sick care. Or at least not as much.
So I taught my first class in 1960. So when we used to do that, health was definitely a part of our curriculum, such as it was. And looking at it historically, I think that, you know, the cycles kind of repeat themselves. And we had a situation where we had No Child Left Behind come. And then all of a sudden, okay, we didn't pay attention to health, we didn't pay attention to social studies, we didn't pay attention to science. We were focused on reading and math, well, mostly reading. And you know, you can read through the content areas, and that was what we, you know, that's the way it was at one time. And I think that we're getting closer now to coming back around and recognizing that the health curriculum is high interest to a lot of the kids. I remember one teacher at a middle school had a portable, and on the door she said, "Welcome to sex, drugs, and rock and roll." You know what I'm talking about. Every kid in that middle school signed up for health class. With the support of their parents. But we taught them about nutrition, we taught them about safety, we taught them about the value of exercise. So when I was first a school counselor, I worked closely with the school nurse, and we had a book where we put the names of children who needed to get medication at school. So there was a short list. Now those books are full. I mean, everyone's on all kinds of medication. That's a good point. And, you know, sometimes I don't know that has helped the situation. But when we focus on strictly on academics and not on soft skills and not on basic life skills that will give those people the knowledge that they need for a lifetime. So that's why I fought for this for so long, and I think that the more support we can garner and the more people that say to our legislators, you know, we want this. I mean, we've taken baby steps to even get to the point we're at now, which is not nearly enough.
I think we're way past,
Yes, we are.
so we really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for having us, thank you for the invitation.
I think our goal, my goal tonight was to come up with something that we were really gonna focus on. Because we're so late, we still have more things to go through. I would ask that everybody think about it. between now and the December meeting. I know we haven't had December meetings in the past,
And we're not scheduled for December.
and we are not scheduled. I would hate.
Can we have one anyway?
Yeah,
or no?
I would.
I mean, we just keep seeing,
No, I know.
we keep missing the ball every year.
Yeah, I would hate to take this into January. I would love to be able to meet, even if we just had a 1 hour meeting or an hour, you know, promise, we wouldn't have any presentations, we wouldn't have anything, and then we could just stay 100% focused. And then we would know before the new year what our focus is for the next.
Exactly. I like Brian's comment, I wanna discuss that more.
So,
Like you brought it going up about the family.
So you need a motion?
okay, so do I have a motion to add a December meeting and we will not have any
I'll make the
guests here? Motion, do I have a second? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, so I think that's the right thing, because last year we did get into an area and it was not Michelle's fault, it was nobody's fault, it was we, at the end of the year, we came up and we really had nothing to present. And I'm glad I wasn't the one presenting that to the board. So I appreciate that. Public comment, there's no public here tonight, correct?
I don't know who our Zoom user is. If Zoom user has public comment? Not hearing anything, so that's not.
Okay, all right, so no public comment. And then Cindy, you have something on here about meeting type in person or Zoom?
Right, tonight actually went pretty smoothly. But we had been talking, all of the district liaisons had talked about whether they were having meetings in person or meetings through Zoom or hybrid. And there are only a couple of groups that are having hybrid meetings, and they were facing some severe difficulties having their meetings similar to what we had last meeting. So I said, well, let's see how this one goes. And then we can have that discussion as to whether we want to go 100% one way or the other. Tonight, everything seemed to run smoothly. We didn't have any problems with people. And I will check, Tammy had to drop off. And I think we had one other person on at one point that dropped off. So as long as they were able to hear everything, you know, so for now, we'll continue as is.
Yeah, that would be my preference, obviously. We get more done, I think, in person. And I think the majority of our going back and forth on computers, our presentations are probably done at this point. So I think from this point forward, will be more action in here versus remotely, so.
And plus, our community transmission rate has gone down. Now they are expecting a rise in January,
Yeah.
so we can reassess at that point.
So are we allowed technically to have somebody bring some food or something in here for a party, or a thank you for coming in December?
Yes, because this is after hours, it is optional, so we can do whatever we want.
All right, so I will set that up. I have some contacts that'll probably do something for us, so, so we'll do something like that. So if you get it scheduled, then we'll work into it. Any good of the order?
We're all here to advise on the strategic plan. And in light of the Fox 4 news article yesterday regarding the effect of our school board members' behavior that is not in alignment with the strategic plan Vision 2030 and in violation of board policy 1.05 and the violation of the principles and professional conduct is having on the other districts. I hereby make a motion as board members have been following the strategic plan, that the committee recommend the school board of Lee County to unanimously ask Governor DeSantis to immediately remove Chris Patrico from the Lee County School.
Point of order, I don't think that's,
Well, it's strategic plan.
it's in
Of
our,
our values,
that's
our
not our,
values for
that's
integrity,
not in our purview.
accountability, professionalism, that's all part of the Vision 2020. So are the strategic initiatives to increase and focus building businesses, community partnerships. You have other districts that are now responding to this. So I think it is very pertinent to what we're doing.
I disagree with you.
It's a strategic
I don't
plan,
think it's the charge of the
it
state.
is against the strategic plan. And other committees have been allowed to do it.
What was a motion made, so it's just be the second of the.
Correct.
Yeah. Does anybody got a second to the motion?
Well, the only thing I will say is, you know, this has been a big topic of discussion. And according to the governor's office, no laws were broken, no ethics were violated, and he is not going to be sanctioning elected officials when that is not the case. I mean, I'm just gonna say that, so.
Well, he's right, there's a motion on the floor, so.
Yeah. Is there a second?
I second it, and Ms. Fisher, I disagree with you with what you're saying, with the governor saying he would not investigate. He has not seen the board's letter. It hasn't been sent, to my knowledge.
Multiple letters have been sent.
He's already come out with that statement publicly that.
That was regarding an ethics complaint that a citizen made.
That was before this incident,
Okay, I'll
right?
call the question.
No, but that's, you can disagree with me.
Well, I just did not know the board had sent a letter yet.
The board did not send a letter, the attorney sent a letter.
And the board did not.
Other individuals
I thought the
have sent letters.
attorney said that she would not send the letter, that somebody else had to write the letter.
No, the pre meeting, I think the attorney
The
did say she
letter
was
that
putting
I
on her
read
letter.
was on her letter.
But it wasn't signed by every board member.
Yeah, she said she was putting on her letter.
Right, it was on her letterhead signed by her.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I guess we take a vote.
You can open it for discussion.
You just did, you had your discussion.
We were discussing.
I call the question.
Well, let me have my discussion then. I don't wanna play politics. I don't care who up there on the board see, this is how I go to try and figure out how to help the families. The board has been elected, and if they don't want Patricia to be there, then vote out the next time. But I think we should be focused on how we help the families the most.
But this
I
is
think-
hurting the family.
But I don't think this, I met Miss Patricia, Miss Patricia, how would you say that? No, Patricia, no, either way. But this is what I say, for me, that one person can't affect our whole school district. So I think for our time, we focus on how do we help the most families. And her being up there, it's 6 other people to worry about. So I don't think getting her kicked off or taking time to focus on that should be the focus, just my opinion. I think we can do what we do with her there now. We don't really need a vote, that's my opinion.
Any other discussion? Okay, so do we have we're gonna have a vote, obviously, all in favor for making the motion, presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so it goes, it's opposed.
Motion fails.
Motion failed, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2. And we had 1.
6, I believe. I think
6.
6 to 2.
Oh, did you raise?
I did.
Okay, so 6, sorry, 6 to 2. All right, I guess that leaves an adjournment, and we'll see everybody on,
Are we picking a date yet for December?
Cindy will get that out with her.
I'll check it out, okay, we will shoot for the same week.
Oh, yeah.
Early in the
And,
morning.
Yeah.
yeah, early in the
Second
month.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll let you know.
I'll make
So
that.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
I'll second that.
All right.
I heard
It was so nice to meet you.
December
In the
1st.
Southwest?
No.
On 10th, it was like that.
Good, how are you? That's for the third.
If anyone has index cards for,